Hey there, in this video we're going to be talking about how to fix low quality leads in your med spa based on our experience of working directly with over 60 med spas at this point and talking to hundreds others, okay? And so let's dive right in. Here's the problem with social media leads. We're going to be talking about leads of Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, but for that matter, really all kinds of leads that come from cold traffic. And I'm going to explain the difference between cold traffic and warm traffic in a second, but this is basically fundamentally what can potentially happen in your business, right? So you may have experienced one of these issues. First of all, if you've tried to run your own ads or if you've worked with an agency that didn't really know what they were doing, chances are you've experienced the first issue, which is you didn't get any leads in the first place. You've spent maybe $100, a couple $100. We've heard our own fair share of horror stories where people have spent thousands of dollars with allegedly no results, getting no leads, which is absolutely insane. Now, the next problem could be that the leads are expensive, extremely expensive. We're talking $20, $30, $40, $50, or even $100 per lead, which is again unacceptable, and I'll explain to you why in a second. Now, we're getting closer. Now we're talking about the low quality leads, the so-called bad leads, right? And how do these leads actually look like? Well, on first instance, maybe they're never picking up the phone, or there is a very low pickup rate, right? No matter how much you call them, no matter how fast you call them, they just don't pick up the phone. They're never to be booked, right? Then you actually have your tire kickers. So the ones who are only curious, they're not ready. They say they need more info. They're basically still shopping around. We like to call them window shoppers as well. And the reason why you're encountering these is because if you imagine the market as this triangle, basically in the market for your services, people who are ripe and ready for the picking are very few, just the tip of that triangle. Most of the people are in the consideration stages. They're kind of deciding, they're researching, they're studying. It's normal that there are these so-called tire kickers. We don't want to be talking to those, okay? Or we want to look at them in a different light, and I'll get to that in a second. The next one, this is a big one, group-owned quality brokies. So people who are only bargain hunters, discount shoppers, the ones who seem to have nothing else to do, to want nothing else more than just your initial consultations, your discount offers, and the ones who can't seem to afford any high ticket or just simply won't want to afford it, okay? Then we're talking about one and done clients, the ones that come in once and then never again. And then obviously we have no shows, they don't even show up in the first instance. All right, so let's talk about the important distinction here. The important distinction here is that really there are no low quality leads, with very few exceptions. There is a slight caveat to that. There are mostly only unqualified leads. And so let me explain what low quality leads would really look like, because people don't actually put their details into a lead form on Facebook or anywhere else for that matter. They don't inquire about something that they don't at least have a remote interest in. Now, for them to be a low quality lead, these three things need to happen. Either as a fraudulent entry, so someone who is maybe a competitor who's swiping, hacking your funnel, your ads. They want to opt in to see what happens, what they get to see on the other side of the ads. Those are fraudulent entries. They could be like letters or mumbo jumbo, right? Then there could be error entries, which means people wanted to opt in, but for some reason they gave wrong contact information. And this can actually happen, especially with Facebook and Instagram forms. If you're using a lead form ad, that form pre-populates with the data that Facebook holds in the profile in the account for that person. And that may be going back to 2009 when these people were teenagers running their first email address. And so that's probably completely outdated. And that's basically how you end up with error entries or wrong phone numbers. And you can combat that very easily. I'll show you that in a second. Now, the last one is accidental entries, slip of hand. We've actually seen those as well, believe it or not. Parents who, when we call them, they said their kids did it. Their kids swiped on their phone, and they ended up with these accidental entries, right? Again, there's a very easy way to combat that as well. Now, when we're talking about unqualified leads, those are the ones that are somewhat semi-interested, except they're just not 100% ready yet. They need some information, they have some questions, they have some doubts, they need to be spoken to, and they need to be qualified. And then the initial interest is there because of the offer, but not much else. So you got them hooked. Now that is a good problem to have, because that means the ad did its job. It attracted someone who's interested. And now we're talking about sales. There is one caveat to all this, which is bad ads can attract low quality clients. That can happen. I'll be the first to admit that. I've spent over $10 million in ads at this point. And so if someone doesn't admit that some bad ads can attract a bad pocket of audience on social media, they don't really know what they're talking about, because The important thing here is to look at the numbers, right? To not make any biased, quick decisions, jump into conclusions just because 2 or 3 people aren't qualified. We're talking 40-50% of the leads that come in are extremely problematic. Then maybe we have an issue with bad ads. Okay, so the solution to each and all of those problems really starts from the top down. The ad, which includes the creative, the image, the video, and the copy, the text. There's a lot of things that can be done and changed in here. It could be a static, or it could be a video. It could be the format of the ad. We're going to need a video in its own right separately for this particular task, for this particular topic, because it's very vast and there's loads that can be tested here. But to keep it top level for the time being, so we can cover everything, the next thing is the qualification criteria, which means the questions that leads opt in get to answer to. Some sort of quiz, some sort of survey. At the beginning, there is not that much of that qualification criteria in there. When we run out at the beginning, we deliberately don't put that much friction at this step of the funnel. And the reason for that is because if the more questions you're asking early on, the more likely you're going to have people opting out and just not being bothered with actually finishing the process, right? They just drop like flies. And that's fine. That's actually something that you want, especially if you're dealing with accidental entries, where you want to have a bit of friction to get people to think, to engage their mind and actually put some answers in there. So if you're selling body contouring, you want to ask them what treatment they've tried before, what body area they want to get treated, and all kinds of other similar questions. It really depends a lot on a case-by-case basis on in relation to the service that we're promoting, right? When it comes to error entries, the qualification criteria means that we can literally ask people to type out their phone number or to type out their email address. And then that overwrites whatever Facebook holds on their accounts by means of contact information for them. Okay. Again, a very top level view of this topic, because again, this requires a video in its own right. But we'll move next to the format of the ad. And so here we're talking statics versus videos, bearing in mind that a static image will tend to get lower leads, lower cost per lead, but the leads are going to be usually a bit less educated, right? A picture tells 1,000 words and then a video tells 1,000 pictures. And so with a video, for someone to actually watch a piece of video content from you and then to opt in, that means that person actually demonstrates a higher interest than someone who just saw a static within a split second and then they opted in. The other thing to be bearing in mind here is that we could be using lead form ads versus landing page ads. And so again, a topic for another video, but each of them have their own place and purpose. And that is another thing to be addressing, the problem of bad quality leads. The offer itself, the offer is king. The offer really changes everything. A good offer in a good market can make everything else irrelevant. Like, I'm not even joking here. We have had offers that were so good, nothing else downstream mattered. People were calling in, people were begging to be booked in. And that's how important the offer is. 80% of the problems can be solved with this one thing alone. Now, that aside, the next thing is the funnel itself. So the landing page that we're sending these people to check out after the ad, the social channels, your Facebook, your Instagram, your Google My Business listing, when people find you on Maps and on Google, what that looks like, your reviews, the photos, the backend text and email sequences. Once people opt in, what do they actually receive? Do they get any text from you? Do they get any emails from you? A lot of that can actually fix the problem of low qualified leads, because it basically educates those leads. It shows them a bit more of who you are and what you do, especially, and I'll give you again a very short example here, when we're talking about leads who come from Facebook ads, where, for example, if you're doing a body contouring campaign or even a facial aesthetics campaign, you cannot actually advertise before and after pictures, right? Because it's against Facebook's policies. What you can do is you can show these things on the back end in the text and in the emails, and people want those things and they ask for them, because that's what gives them confidence that this is real results from real people. This is actually all part of the follow-up flow. So we've already covered that. And then finally, a super important piece that we're going to be focusing most of this video on is the sales process. And when we're talking sales, we're talking the appointment setting part and the consultation in the clinic once they're booked in. And so what most lead generation marketing agencies do is they get you leads, They offer you some generic advice on how to handle them. They tell you call them as fast as possible, call them as many times as possible. They don't tell you how fast, they don't tell you how many times and what kind of results you can expect from that. And then they leave you to it. And then you end up thinking that the leads are bad. You call them as fast as you can between you and your team outside of appointments and consultations. Then you follow them up the next day out of your busy day, out of busy schedule. They still don't pick up. And then you basically conclude that leads are bad and Facebook ads are dead and you call it a day. Now, the problem here is really the med spa sales process. And what marketing agencies assume is that you have one. And if you don't, well, it's not your fault, because the fundamental difference that we have to deal with here is the understanding that these are leads from cold traffic. These are not leads that come to you from referrals, from sources of recommendations, word of mouth, Google searches. These are cold ads, cold traffic, people who've never heard of you, never seen you before, and they need to be treated with a completely different approach. And so we've actually opted into dozens of med spa ads, and we do it on a constant basis to see what's really looking like, the process. And we observed what they would do. Some would take ages to call us, or they would never call us, and some would call us within minutes or even seconds, right? Now, we deliberately did not pick up the first time. Some would leave it at that. Others would continue to follow up for up to 1 week, which is great. Could be better though. There would be messages, there would be texts, voice notes, there would be emails, or other times crickets, nothing. We would hear absolutely nothing as if we never opted in. And we would rapidly forget about those spots. It's only normal. The attention is so limited right now, and there are so many competitors fighting for these same leads, for these same potential customers, that you just cannot afford to set it and forget it, to ignore these people after they gave you their data, right? Because top of mind salience wins. Whenever people are ready to make the decision, the buying decision, if they think of you, you guessed it, they're going to buy with you. If they think of someone else, a competitor sweeps in and stays present top of mind, they'll take that client away from you. And so a good sales process ensures that you stay top of mind, turn bargain hunters into booked appointments, convert more interest sessions into high-ticket treatment plans. You are able to actually get these people to come in, to convert into high-ticket plans, and to actually charge way more than your competitors for it. And as a consequence, generate a huge return on ad spend on your ad spend. Self-explanatory. So why is this even necessary? Let's talk the philosophy behind it really quickly. Cold traffic versus warm traffic. Cold traffic is people who don't know you. If they come from social media ads, they're 100% cold. They don't know you, they don't like you, they don't trust you. And that's fundamentally the difference between them and warm traffic. These are people who have some sort of rapport with you, direct or indirect, whether they've come to you before, previous customers, or their referrals, word of mouth, organic, Google search, Google Maps. It doesn't even begin to compare. And so it's just like with a friend versus a complete stranger. When a friend calls you, you drop everything for them, right? Well, strangers will need to go out of their way to earn your attention. And this is no different. And the solutions are as follows. Solution one is to follow up more. Fortunes in the follow-up. You've heard this before. How much should you follow up? We configure our pipelines in a way where a lead whose answer to a text is a hot lead. That lead should be treated with a lot more respect than one that's never responded. Anywhere between 5 and 14 days. That's how far you should be going to touch and to try and continue a conversation with a lead who has expressed some form of interest. The ones who are completely unresponsive, they never picked up the phone, they never responded to any text, they should still be followed up to 7 days and then moved into a long-term nurture sequence. More on that in a second. And so when you look at this, it may look like overkill, but that is what's necessary. And we've studied the data over and over again. The number of appointments that we get in day one versus the number of appointments that we get in the next 5 to 14 days, half of the appointments come in this long-term sort of cycle. So what do you do then? Text in day one, text in day 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you move them into long-term nurture where you text them every 2, 3, 4, 5 days with different pieces of content. We'll get to that in a second. If you call them, you do call them, you will call them every day for the first 3 days, and then you'll go to day 5, and then you'll go to day 7, and then you'll stagger to then 10, 14. So you go in a bit more rare towards the end of it, and you still continue to call them at different times of the day, twice a day, double dial every time. There is a reason for double dial. It's that if the phone has an automatic blocker for numbers that is not in the phone's contacts list, the second dial makes it look like it's an emergency dial and it pushes it through. And so that's the extent to which we call and text leads in our call center. And the good news is that these texts are entirely automated. And so a lot of this is done with sequences. A lot of it is done with AI. I'll show you that right now. The solution to that, the solution number 2, really, is to follow up faster. And so there are actual academic studies on the fact that the pickup percentage drops after 5 minutes by 90%. So in those first 4 or 5 minutes, you have almost 90% of the leads picking up the phone, and then you get about 10% of them, and you have to follow up with them forever and ever and ever, right? And that is why it's so crucial. This is speed to lead, and we do it within 5 minutes, but really, if we can, we do it within 5 seconds. The entire call center is optimized so that the concierge, the appointment specialist, can actually get in there and speak to them within seconds. This may not be possible if you're the only resource in your med spa at the moment, but if you have a front desk, it's crucial that they get set up with the reminders and with the notifications on their Slack, on their CRM, whatever platform you guys are using, to get these leads moved from Facebook into a database and have them get on them within seconds, okay? The other thing that we do is text leads out of office hours instantly with auto responders. So a lot of leads come in late at night, extremely late at night, 9, 10, even 2, 3 a.m. And some come on Sunday early morning or during actual holidays, during Thanksgiving, during Christmas. Those are days where we actually do not call leads unless they actually require us to call them. And so what we do instead is we follow and we text them with these autoresponders. Here's a clever trick that we do right now, which is we basically put this first text, which is automatic responder. Hey, Julia, we received your inquiry. Hold tight. Someone on our team will get back to you ASAP, right? This is automatic. It's going out instantly. Seconds later, we have this follow-up message, which is, hi Julia, this is Yvonne from Aesthetics Pros. Just so you were interested in our weight loss program. Yay, I have a couple of minutes now. Can I have a call to talk through it? This text is also automatic, but because it looks like, by contrast, because it doesn't have this bit there, it makes it look like it's a real person. And if this is within working hours or even outside working hours, people respond to it a lot. Okay, and when they respond, that's when you can jump in and start texting them, or even better, call them. But between that then and now we have a bit more follow-up to do. So if they don't respond, the next few days we're going to be texting them before and after. We're going to be testing them case studies, stories, testimonials. We start with these very short texts, like here's a before and after, send me a thumbs up or a thumbs down so I know if this is useful. Do I have the right number? If we don't get any response, we do that as well. Why? Because these, well, with this one, they can say yes or no. And with this one, they literally just send a reaction. We try to make it as easy as possible for them to raise their hand to indicate some interest, that there's a real human being on the other side of the phone line. So do we do that? We do that with close-ended questions. And then, only then, once we have them responding to these very low ask, low commitments, we then progress into open-ended questions, which are what area you're looking to treat, what, how long, why, who, where. These are open-ended questions. Closed-ended questions are the ones that get a yes or a no. And so what we do really there is we delay the ask, which means we do a friction distribution. Less ask up front, more ask once they're getting invested and actually are having a conversation. It's normal. Cool. So the point of that is to get compliance, to get hand raisers. These are the hot leads, and these hot leads pick up 60% more across our portfolio of clients. A lead who's responded to a text is 60% more likely to actually pick up the phone later on. And this is where we plug in our AI automation text responder. This is an AI bot trained on your FAQ, frequently asked questions, to initiate discovery. So the next phase in the texting sequence, in the sales process, the setting process rather at this stage, is discovery. And so the point of that is that you do not want to close over text. You do not want to ask for the appointment over the text, or God forbid, try and ask for the deposit over the phone, over the text. It does not happen. You need to get them on the phone. They need to speak to a real human being. And so because of that, you do not go straight for booking the appointment. Instead, you qualify. And what I mean by qualify, you'll get that in a second. Just know that there is a double purpose to it. By asking them questions about the treatments that they've tried before, what they're trying to achieve, etc., we are nurturing them. Okay, we're basically making sure that they're fit for our service, and also we give them the impression and the feeling that they're not just coming in and everyone's getting accepted no matter what. There is a bit of qualification. You have to be fit. You have to apply for it almost. It gives it a bit more exclusivity. And that's something where people start to feel like they are being chosen and selected rather than the other way around, where there's no exclusivity and everyone just waltz right in, right? Okay. And so whenever they respond, you get notified automatically. You set notifications on all of your texts so that whenever they respond, you are able to respond straight away or even call them straight away. This is called speed to lead, speed to reply, and we want to do that within seconds still. Now, this is what automations look like. I'll show you automations in our CRM. You can build these automations very easily, but fundamentally, you can see here a couple of branches. We're going to keep it very top level. This is very low resolution. It's not a great image, but the point of it is to see that there are conditions where leads reply or they don't reply. If they reply, they get a series of emails and texts. If they reply, they get a series of other emails and texts. And this may seem pretty complex, but don't worry about the technicality of it just yet. Just know that all of this is entirely automated and you don't actually need to do anything. This all happens backstage, and you're just getting a notification that tells you this person responded. And that's the only thing that you should be caring about. On the back end, we can make these as complex and smart as possible. And we do have loads of automations that remind people of the appointments, of cancellations, of reschedules. Everything virtually can be automated so that your input required is pretty minimal. And so what happens when a lead responds, that's ultimately what we are solving for, is when you start a qualification and you start over text with questions such as problem related, so we can best help you. And then you ask, what is it exactly that you're trying to achieve here? And that is, again, specific to the treatment that you are promoting. The goal, what does the ideal treatment look like for you? What are you looking to achieve? Overview past attempts, super important. Have you tried something similar in the past? Have you tried this treatment in the past? Has it worked? Has it not? Why did it work? Why did it not work? See how we're moving from a question, has it worked? Yes, no, to an open-ended one. Why did it not work? How come? In what way though? Because there they can elaborate a bit. Do not ask too much of a text because you're not going to get a response and you're going to lose that conversation. And again, when we train our AI to do this for us, we put all of these lessons and rules into the model. Timeline. How soon are you looking to achieve the result, to get started? Again, important, so that we know if we're dealing with someone who's ready to book or not. And as soon as we have that, call to action. Okay, great. I have a couple of minutes before our next appointment. Would a quick 2-minute call work for you now to get you scheduled? Or can we do it later on? Give them the option to choose. And then the actual phone call. In the actual phone call, you basically are doing the same thing all over again, more or less. You are trying to create a gap between the pain that they're experiencing right now, extra weight, signs of aging, whatever it may be, and the dream outcome that they're wanting to achieve by expanding on the discovery that's already initiated over text. So there's no point in asking the same questions all over again. Just ask more questions, new questions, and expand and create this gap. We call it a gap because it essentially creates a space of a lack between where they are now and where they want to be. And in that space is the emotions associated with everything they've tried before, the frustrations that they've dealt with if they try to lose weight for a number of years, for example, and it hasn't worked. That is something that we want to get them present to. And I know that you've probably you've asked these questions 100 times before and you've heard the same answers. The point of this is not for you to hear the answers. The point of this is for them to hear themselves talk, because that's when they get emotionally involved in it, and it's important. It's not because you're being salesy or pushy. It's because when people are emotionally involved, that's when they pull the trigger and make a decision. Otherwise, people procrastinate. People procrastinate until they hit that threshold of emotion beyond which they say no more. It's time to do something about this, okay? And you make decisions pretty much the same way, chances are. Unless you are an extremely logical and rational person, in which case, more power to you. Okay, so what is it that you're trying to achieve? That's one question. How long has this been bothering you? What is this stopping you from doing? How is this affecting you? Expand on that pain. Get more degrees of implication. How is this affecting your relationships? How is this affecting your relationship with yourself, your self-esteem, you at work, you in your fitness, in your day life, with your nephews? Can you pick them up? That's the level to which you want to get to, ideally. Why do you want to deal with this now? Why not later? Why not last year? Why now? What's happening? Is there a special event? What have you tried in the past? How did it go? How soon are you looking to achieve your Dream Desire. And then you explain your treatment. You keep it strictly to unique selling points, to just your value propositions. Our treatment is non-invasive, no downtime, no risk, minimally invasive, cheap, affordable, more affordable than surgery, than the alternative. You don't need to go into too much technical detail now, or really ever for that matter. You can explain some of these things when they come in for the consultation, but ideally this stays very top level, and it's just meant to explain away the things they've tried before and position it as better. So if someone has tried dieting and exercise and it hasn't worked, then it goes without saying that permanent weight loss is going to be better because you guessed it, it's permanent, right? Okay, then we move on to the call to action. Again, before we do that, we constantly want to temp check, meaning we ask the person if they're with us, if they understand. Does that make sense? Are you with me? Any questions so far? Make sense? Okay. And we do tie downs, which is, so far on a 1 to 10, how convinced are you that this is the right solution for you? 10. Great. That's a tie down. They're tied to the process. Now it's a question of actually getting them booked in. And it's super important to do this because there will be a cash exchange. You'll see that in a second. And so this is your call to action. Sounds like we're going to be able to help you. When would you like to come in? Morning or afternoon? Always give options. Morning or afternoon? Tuesday or Wednesday? Always better to have an option, a close-ended question again, than to have people open up their calendar, go through a ton of consideration to decide when to go, because a confused mind won't pull the trigger. Again, bear in mind you want to book them as early as possible, because the longer you wait, the lower the chance that they'll actually show up. And so in a nutshell, the goals of the phone qualification is to find out the pain, the struggle, the dream desired outcome, overview their past attempts to solve that problem and to achieve that outcome, because that's going to basically allow you to then explain your solution and position it as different to everything they've tried before. If they get a feel that this is more of the same thing they've tried before, they're not going to book it. If they tried ultrasonic cavitation before and now they think that this is the same thing, they're not going to chances are they're not going to do it again, unless you explain to them why it hasn't worked and why it's going to work this time. Okay, here's the cash transaction. You need to be collecting a deposit. It is documented. The appointments without deposit do not show up. So the fastest way to turn an unqualified lead into a qualified lead is to get them to put skin in the game, to have a deposit paid down. It's not the act of collecting the deposit that gets them qualified. It's the fact that you're able to pull it off in the first place. Because when there is an exchange of cash, no matter how small, people have already made up their mind. Otherwise, they will not be buying. And so how much should you be charging? $29 to start with is a pretty sweet spot right now. We are increasing that to $49 if the shop is below 90%, and even to putting the card on file to charge them the full amount if they don't show, or we can even charge the payment upfront if the shop is even lower. So, and especially if they want to book too far out, we say this is a limited offer. We're going to have to charge this whole thing up front. Whenever you come in, you can claim it. If you want to reschedule it, no problem. Just bear in mind that if there's any issues at the deposit collection phase, it means chances are the gap was not created adequately. There is no emotional involvement. Because again, if you create a gap and if you position your solution as the answer to all of their problems, you will have no problem collecting a deposit. Really, the only 3 reasons why people do not pay that deposit is a lack of trust in you or the service, lack of emotional buy-in, which allows them to procrastinate. They think, I'll solve it another time, it doesn't really hurt me. And a lack of clarity. A confused mind makes no decision. So if they're not clear about the process, if you were a bit too technical, too verbose, that will confuse them into not making a decision. It has to be crystal clear, and then they will basically go with it. Conviction, confidence is the key here. Authority and leadership. And so you have to identify objections and handle them. The way to handle them is the lack of trust you handle by sending them to your landing page, to reviews, to your Google My Business listing, to before and after testimonials, case studies. The lack of emotional buy-in you solve by creating a proper gap between their pain and desire with discovery, like we already covered. And the lack of clarity you fix by staying simple, non-technical in your pitch, which explains away their worries and previous unsuccessful attempts. So it gets them excited about this completely new approach. And now for anything else, typically logistical, such as I don't get paid till a certain day, which happens sometimes, I would say even there, you can probably try to still get that deposit straight there. But if you have no way whatsoever, your final resort is to schedule a courtesy follow-up. Never leave it up to them. for them to call back. Just schedule a courtesy follow-up and say, just so we don't miss each other, I have scheduled a call, 1 o'clock. Does that work? Get a firm commitment of the time. Don't get a generic call me after 5. Should I call you at 5? Should I call you at 5:05? Can I call you at 5:10? Is it that you're going to be coming off work and you're going to be talking to me on your drive home? Okay, perfect. Let's talk then. Super important. Do not send them links, payment links. And if you do, just wait with them on the phone until it's paid, right? Justify it if you have to. Say, I'm making sure that the link works. Sometimes it doesn't. Some clients have had problems in the past paying the link online. So I'm going to stay here with you until it's paid and confirmed so I can book you in. If you give the link again, whenever you give that power away to them through no fault of their own, again, people will just postpone. So it is in your best interest and in their best of interest that this moves forward with leadership and conviction, because only then is this actually going to happen and they're going to achieve their dream results, and they're not going to be waiting years down the line to say later on that this should have been done earlier. Okay. So again, the deposit is only refundable 24 hours prior to the appointment, and it goes as credit towards the cost of treatment. Pretty simple. Final steps. Once the appointment is booked in, your job is not quite done, almost there. It's important to try and prevent the buyer's remorse. So what is the buyer's remorse? People buy, people make a decision, and then their justifications kick in, their fears kick in. They start to worry. Maybe it doesn't work for them. Maybe this is not the right place. Maybe they shouldn't have rushed into it. Maybe they should wait till next year, or they simply forget about the appointment. And so what you want to do here is anticipate all of their doubts and fears and preempt them with pieces of content. You send them FAQs, frequently asked questions. You send them next steps, so they're clear about what's going to happen next. They'll come in, there's going to be a consultation, there's going to be a treatment. We are located here. We send them first-time guides. Prepare for the appointment, drink plenty of water, dress comfortably, wear no makeup, shave the area if we're talking laser hair removal, etc. Everything, nothing left to guesswork, okay? Logistical, super simple. Make sure the address is correct. There's landmarks and directions. Turn right at this point. Look for the blue chairs. Photos of the place. Again, makes it real, a real tangible place, which they otherwise have never seen in their life, okay? Reviews, super important. You have those on Yelp. You have those on Google My Business. You have them on Facebook. Share them, send it to them so that they can consume them and they can reassure themselves that this is great. Who would you buy from? A business that has 500 5-star reviews, or one that has only 5 or 10 reviews? And more so, who would you buy from? Someone who you've never seen their Google listing before, or someone who you've already seen tens of people already sing them hymns of prayer, okay? And so you can also send them some light explanation of the process if you have to, and case studies and success stories. Again, how do you do that? What is the distribution medium for this? Email and text, social media, which is your shadow funnel, meaning people will pop out of their ads, get off the phone with you, and they'll check you on your social media. They'll check your Instagram, your Facebook. They'll check your stories. They'll check your posts. They'll check your Google My Business listing. They'll check your website. All of these things have to be in good standing order. We'll have to make a separate video for all of this. And then during the appointment, just remember that you're going to be doing qualification again. First impressions, of course, matter most. It goes without saying. Once they come in, they have to find a spotless, clean place, a greeted smile with a welcome, a drink. You know those things. You're probably already doing those things. If you don't, then again, bear in mind, super important. This is the time to excite them and delight them, because that's when they're going to come back. And super important to frame the consultation as the what's going to happen. There's going to be a discovery. You're going to be asking questions, and then you're going to consult them in order to achieve the best results. Make it about them, not about you. We have a video on this whole selling and consultation training. I'll link it somewhere. And the final step of the appointment is, of course, to give them incentives to book there and then. Again, see how we're always making things feel I don't want to say urgent, because that's where people misinterpret that as being salesy and pushy. But at the end of the day, we have to understand that when people have incentives, and people love a good incentive, like a one-time offer, like a limited time offer, they will pull the trigger and do what's best for them. And so that is a win-win. Fundamentally, everything has to be thought of as win-win. And so this is everything in a nutshell. For next steps, if you have any questions about any of this process, we actually solve the patient generation for MedSpas in an entirely done for you basis. We get 20 appointments per month or more. It scales with spend. And so if you want us to solve that for you, then book a call with us on this link. I'll put in the bio below as well. Or if you want us to discuss a done with you or even do it yourself configuration arrangement, we actually have a lot of resources that we can send over your way. Again, book a call, let's have a conversation, and we look forward to seeing you around.